Okay, so today let's talk about structures. What's the structures? How to use it? Why we need it? How our system's memory model for using these structures to support these structures. It will be a good, interesting topic for today. Okay, so before we talk about structures, right now, so far we know there's a lot of type we can use. We can use integer, we can use float, we can use character, we can even use an integer array. So we have so many different type supported by C languages. But how to make a more complicated structures? So let me show you an example. Right now, we want to define an apple. We want to define an apple. And in this apple, some information we need to provide, right? For example, we need to provide what's the color of this apple. What's the original origin, no, of the type. What's the weight of the type, right? So there's a couple information we need to provide. So in a program, definitely we can say, okay, for color, it should be a character. R means red, B means blue, or K means black. We can do it. For original, it might be a string, and a weight, it can be an integer. Okay, so in the code, we can use 3 lines of the code to define this apple. However, it's not so convenient because every time you need to deal with this stuff, you need to remember what's the variable name for these 3. Like you need to remember 3 variable name to define this apple, right? So in Java, we have this special stuff. It's called class. This includes a field you can have. It also supports the methods. For example, gateway. This is for Java. Java class. And in C, unfortunately, C is not object-oriented programming. It's not object-oriented programming languages. So we need to figure out another way to do it. Fortunately, C provides a special stuff. It's called structures to support this complicated data type definition. So for the C structures, you can define color, original, weight, but you cannot define methods because this is not object-oriented programming languages. So what's the difference between C structures and Java class? The huge difference is that you cannot define methods in the class C structures. Okay, so let me show you an example how to define structures. Before I talk about it, I have to let you know structures you can treat C structures equal to type. So C structures, you can treat this as a special type, just very similar to integer. Okay, so how to define structures? You need to give a special keyword called structures. This is a keyword and provide the name of this type. For example, it's called apple. Structure apple is a define. And parentheses. And you provide the field. For example, you want a character, color. You want a character, original. You want an integer, weight. This is how you define a new type for C languages. You're using structure as a keyword, and you give a name. And how to use it? When you want to use it, remember I say C structure equal to type equal very similar to other type. How you use integer? You say integer a equal to 0, right? You can do it. Of course, C structures is a special type. It's a more complicated type. So you can use it as how you use integers. If you want to define an apple, for example, you need to say struct apple a equal blah, 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 blah. So very similar, right? You just say a type here, a type here. So actually, two keywords for structures equal to one special keyword for the type. So structure, struct, plus the name together, two keywords, two words together will be a new type name. And everything else is just the same. Okay, so let me show you an example how to program structures in your computer. Okay, so right now, just to start, we create a new file. It's called C file. And right now, we want to understand how to, for example, we want to define today. We want to define tomorrow. So before that, we need to think about, okay, what kind of data type we should use? Because each day contains three information: months, year, days, right? So straightforward, I can give a special type called date, parentheses, and define months, define day, define year. Then we have a main function. Main function by default, the return value is integer. Okay, so this is the default kind of the default structures for main function. And right now, how to use it? We can say struct date. Remember, two words together is a new keyword as a type. So I use this type to define today. After I define it, I can say today the month equal to September 9. Today the day equal 1st. So today is September 1st. Today the year is a really, really bad year, 2020, and so on. If I want to print this special data type, I can say today is %i, %i, %i /n. I want to print out what day is today. I can say today, the month, today, the day, and today, the year. That's it. So right now, let's run this program. GCC days, the C dash O, we want to create this program called days. And that's a warning, just ignore it. So right now we can execute the days. Today is September 1st, 2020. Okay, so this is very, very simple example. And of course, you can easily to initialize this program. For example, let's go back to this program. I don't actually need to provide each field's number, like the months in one line, the days in another line, and year in another line. I can initialize just like what I did for integer or for other stuff. I can say structure date tomorrow. Okay, structure date tomorrow equal to this. 9 to 2020. I can use it. So if I use it, let me show you. Tomorrow will be tomorrow the month, tomorrow day, tomorrow year. Okay, then GCC, then yeah, and dates. Okay, so tomorrow. So we can easily initialize the program by using this line, this format. Okay, and of course, there's more stuff you can define a new data type. For example, if you only want to provide, let's say, a day and the year, you want to ignore, um, the months, or you want to ignore the year. Okay, so you can also do it like this. Structure date, someday, someday. And you can say, okay, I only want to provide two information. So the months equal to 9 and the day equal to 3 or 18. Okay, then in this case, you can also do this. Someday is %I and %I, and someday and ignore a year, because the year we did not give any value, so it doesn't mean anything. So in this case, let's compile it and run it. You can see we got it. So there's a couple ways to initialize the structures, and it's easy, it's not difficult. Treat the structures as a new special complete data type. You can imagine that it's just a data type. Okay, so any question? Hello, Professor. Can we use array in structure? Can we use structure in array? Can we do more complicated data type? I don't quite understand. I think it's too complicated. Okay, so I believe this is a good question. And yes, of course, we can use array. And array is not so complicated. Remember how we define an integer array. Integer array. Sorry. Clear. Use black pen. Integer array, integer A, blah, blah, blah. I want 10 array. That's how we define an integer array, right? And I say structure is just a special type. So let's change it. We can say structure days, a variable, array. So in this case, you got an array of a structured data type. So there's a lot of different elements in this array. Each element just, the type of each element is a structure of days. Okay, so this is how you do the array of structures. Of course, in other way, you can do a structure of array. For example, I want to create a new structure called September, or no, let's say a year. a calendar. Okay, so there's the new structures for calendar. So the structured calendars provide some information. For example, how many days for each month. So we have an integer, a year, for this calendar. And we need how many days for each month, right? So we have total 12 months. So we can define an integer array, which is called months 12. Then we try to put each data then in this calendar, right? So for example, calendar 2020, we just say structure calendar this year. Okay, and we can say this year dot year equal to 2020. Then we can say a month. So let's say a month this year. The month 1 February equal to 29 because there's 29 days for February this year, right? So I can say this year a month equal to. So you can define the array into a structure. You can also define an array of structures. So it's not so complicated. It's straightforward. Just remember, treat your structure as a new type. Then you will know how to use it. And of course, you are free to define any type in the structures. Okay, so let me show you an example in our systems. Okay, so here's an example. Let's just go back to the example we have. So right now we have a date, these special structures, and we can say, okay, so we want to define, we really want to define a new variable called holiday. So what's a holiday for this year? So we can say, okay, so let's 50 holidays this year. And we can just use a holiday, the second holiday dot months equal to 7. And another line, holiday months, year, of course, 2020, and holiday, the day equal to 4. We should put for this one here. And we can define another holiday. Holiday, the 7 months equal to 5. And holiday 7, the day equal to 4. And holiday 7 dot year still the same equal 2020. So we can use it to define. So, and we can easily print out the holidays out just like what we did. Just give an example. Let's try to bring out holiday number number 8 is which day? Holiday 7 and holiday 7. 7 dot year. Okay, and we missed 1 year here, so let's change it %I. Cool. Okay, let's do compile, and you can see So we can use array of type. Don't forget, treat the structure plus a new keyword as a new type. Okay, so it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult. And another example, let's say, give us another example here. We can define another structures. So we can define another structures. These structures can be day2. Okay, the structure can be day2, and there's a character called month. So we give a name. So we give a name of each month, then the day, the year. Okay. So in this case, we define the array in the structures. We change the integer. We change the month from an integer to a character. So we can use some more special like a string, like special. Then, okay, so right now we have day2 here. This is new structure, and we can use it to define structure day2, and this day can be today or yesterday. Yesterday equal to, we can give is August because today is September, August 31, 2020. Okay, we can use it. So this is array of character, and we put each character into the array. Okay, then we can say bring out yesterday is bring out yesterday. Yesterday is yesterday. And remember, because right now the month is not integer, is a array of character which is string, so we need to put something different here. Okay, let's try. GCC days, and you can see yesterday is August 31, 2020. So you can define array in a structure. You can define the structures, array of structures. You can define structures of array. You can define array of structures. Of course, you can put the structures into another structures. Okay, so because structure is just a type, right? So you can definitely put the structures into a structures. So here's the example. Here's the example. Let's see, go back to our program. Here's a program. If we want to define a day and time, if we want to define a day and time. So let's say, okay, there's a structures called day and time. Structures day and time. And of course, this is new structure, right? So we can say, okay, so this structure day and time, and we want to use the format day2. So we use structures as a type defined in a new structures. Day2, D, and of course, we need another structure called time here, but we don't have any structures for time. So let's create one. So structures time is a new type because we want to figure out what time is it. And in this time stuff, we have hour, we have minutes, we have seconds. Okay, so in this case, we define the new structures time and new structure day and time. So we use structures day and structures time in a structures day and time. So after we define it, we can definitely use it. For example, we can say, okay, right now I have a new structures day and time, so I want to use it to set up a deadline. So day and time, deadline equal. Remember, there's a two member, day and time. And in for day, because we state 2, so we can say August A31. And this one can be what? Can be time. We just put this 11, 15, 59. So you need the due date yesterday. Okay, so if you understand this part, then of course you can print out something here. So print F due date. Due is percent S because it's August, percent I, integer, percent I, integer, and the space, then percent I, hour, minute, and second. Then in this case, you can put the deadline dot D because the date is D, the month, deadline dot D, the day, deadline dot D, the year, deadline dot T, the hour, deadline dot T, the minute, deadline dot T, the year. That's it. So then let's compile it. And no error. Okay, so it's not year here. It should be second. Second year. Okay. GCC, then compile it. So due is August A. No, August A31. No, should be August 31, 2020. It's so weird. It's like a two. Okay, so let's compile and yeah, the due date is August 31, 2020, 11, almost the midnight. Okay, so this is idea. So right now you know how to use structures inside another structures. You can, because the structure is just like another data type. So you definitely, after you define it, you can definitely use it. This is the idea. Okay, that's good for today. I hope you enjoy this lecture. I hope you understand how to use structures. And structure is so important. We will cover structures and functions and memory model next time. Structure is great.